Hello and welcome back to my channel. You will know what this video is about by the title of the video, and if you follow me over on Instagram you would have seen that I posted that I had had a miscarriage. And I didn't go into too much detail in that post because it's a bit of a long story to have got to the point where I had my miscarriage. And the reason I'm sharing this story is because my whole channel has been me sharing my journey with my hormones, so being diagnosed with PCOS, being diagnosed with endometriosis. And the reason that I chose to share so much is because I want women to be able to advocate for themselves. I have found that this area, female hormones, must be incredibly underfunded, under-researched, because I have been misdiagnosed and sent away so many times by doctors, and only when I found a really good gynecologist, which I had to pay for, did I start to get the ball rolling in terms of being diagnosed, having surgery, etc. And I've had so many messages on here, on Instagram, from women saying, thank you so much for sharing your journey, it really helped. I'm in the same situation, I knew what to go to the doctors and ask for, I'm now having surgery, I've now been diagnosed, etc. And that is why I continue to do this. And most people, normal people, would probably keep their miscarriage story private, but because of the way it happened and how I felt so unsupported, I felt like it was important to share this story. So I'm going to try and do this as succinctly as possible. It's long and there might be bits that I miss and have to go back, etc. I know the lighting in this video isn't great either, but I feel like that's irrelevant. I just need to get this out now whilst it's fresh in my mind, and hopefully it's going to help somebody else who is in the same situation. Okay, so I found out I was pregnant at the beginning of January. I had an inkling before my period. I was getting up frequently to go for a wee in the night. I just felt off, like I didn't feel right. My gums started bleeding when I was brushing them. I just had some of the early pregnancy signs. So we got to Edinburgh, I picked up a pregnancy test, did it, and it said I was pregnant, and we were so happy, so excited. And that's a moment that we'll never forget. I've also got to try and not cry. We're literally 3 minutes in. And on the way back from that trip, it's like 3 days later, in the car I started to get really bad cramping. So I did the normal thing that everybody does. I went to Google and it said that cramping in early pregnancy was normal. Obviously your hormones are changing, your uterus is expanding, the baby's implanting. So I just took it as like cramping is normal. And then as it progressed, the pregnancy, the cramping got worse and it almost felt like contractions. So this would come in waves. Typically at night I would be woken up, I'd feel it building, and then it would peak, and I would be in bed like child's pose, all fours, rolling round whilst this pain happened, and then it would die down. And this could happen like 3 times in a night, and then I just had like constant cramping throughout the day. So I decided to ring my doctor. I had to tell them I was pregnant to begin with anyway, and I explained that I'd been having this cramping. So they said that I needed to contact the emergency gynecology unit at the hospital, and I spent a lot of time in this place, as you'll see from this story. So I went in, they did my bloods to check my HCG levels, I had a external and internal examination, and at this point they were more concerned that the pregnancy could be ectopic or had implanted in the wrong place. So they did all those things, and then they booked me in for a scan. I came back the next day and was told everything was in the right place, but I was only 5 weeks pregnant, so at this point they couldn't tell me whether the pregnancy was viable. So they said, come back in a week, we will do your bloods again, check that your HCG levels have increased, and we will do a scan to check whether the pregnancy is viable. So I went back, my HCG levels were at the point where they could scan me, which was good news to begin with. And yeah, we saw a baby, tiny baby, so small, but we could see a heartbeat, which was amazing news. So that was 6 weeks pregnant. And then I went home, and probably week 6 to week 7, I was fine. Still mild cramping, but they told me not to worry. And then as we got towards like half of week 7, towards week 8, is when the spotting started. And my husband and I had booked ourselves in for a private 8-week scan, just because things hadn't been going to plan. I'd been in a lot of pain, etc., and we just wanted that confirmation. So we just decided to book ourselves in for an 8-week scan at a private fertility clinic, and just to check that the baby was okay. And they were amazing. I told her that I'd started spotting the day before, so she said, let's check baby's okay. Baby's fine. We could see a heartbeat, and she started trying to look for this source of bleeding, and she couldn't see anything, which was good news. So I told her that I'd been at this point for 2 internals, and I'd been told that I had an ectropion, but I actually had 3 ectropions, which is basically where the cells grow outside of the cervix where they shouldn't. I will pop a diagram here, because this is what I use when I'm trying to explain to people what it is. I've suffered with these for years. I've had them removed before. Having done my research, they're caused by excess estrogen. And because endometriosis is also an estrogen dominant condition, I think it's just the way my hormones work, and I get these ectropions and they come back. But I've not had them removed since 2019. I've just sort of lived with it. But they kept telling me that the spotting I was experiencing was caused by this ectropion. So as my hormone levels were changing, it causes them to bleed. So that at the time seemed plausible and possible. So my spotting at that point was brown, which indicates like old blood, or pink. So when I looked that up online again, it said that spotting can be common for women, normal for women during pregnancy, and if you were looking at like pinkish or brown blood, then it wasn't something to be concerned about. So at this point, I had been told it was my ectropion that was causing the spotting, that they couldn't find any other bleeding, and that baby was fine at 8 weeks. So at this point, I had been spotting for a while, and I just chose to like accept that this might just be part of my pregnancy. It was fine, but deep down, I just, the whole way through this pregnancy, felt like something wasn't right. I couldn't connect with the baby. I just had this horrible gut feeling that this pregnancy wasn't going to progress. And I think sometimes when I went to the hospital, they just put it down to me being obviously worried, which is understandable, but I kind of felt like the whole way through my pregnancy there was always something wrong. Anyway, that scan, that 8-week scan, was on the Thursday, and the spotting had stopped by the Saturday. So I was like, this is great, fantastic, the spotting's gone away, I can relax and try and enjoy this pregnancy. So we left that 8-week scan, I was spotting, but they couldn't find a source of the bleeding. Baby was fine, and we put it down to the ectropion, and that was fine. And then we got to Monday, and that was my midwife appointment, my first midwife appointment at 8 weeks. And I told her that I was incredibly anxious, that I'd been spotting. It had been nearly a week now since the spotting, and I didn't tell her that I'd been for a private scan because, I'll be honest, I wanted them to do something about it. I wanted to check again, and I knew that if I told her I'd been for an 8-week scan, she'd be like, you've had a scan, you're fine, stop worrying. So I did hold that information back. I had to do a urine sample for that appointment. I went to the toilet, I did my urine sample, I wiped, and at this point there was like fresh blood in my discharge. So it wasn't brown, it wasn't pink, we were now seeing fresh blood. So I went into that appointment, I gave her the rundown of what had happened so far, and I told her that my spotting had now progressed from brown, pink to red. So we did my midwife appointment, and she said, you need to leave here today, you need to call the emergency gynecology unit, tell them that you've had your midwife appointment, your midwife's concerned, and that you need to go in for a scan. So I thought, right, okay, that's exactly what I did. I rang them, I explained that I'd been in previously, I had had an internal, I had had a scan, and they basically said that they didn't see any clinical reason to scan me. That as far as they were concerned, it was my ectropion that was bleeding, and they don't understand why my midwife has told me that. And I remember at this point breaking down in tears. I was so upset because I had one person, my midwife, telling me that I need to go and get this investigated and that I need to be scanned, and then I had somebody else saying, no you don't, we're not going to do it. So I ended up ringing my midwife back the next day, explaining what had happened, and she actually got in contact with a senior midwife who then rang the emergency unit to find out what was going on. And I don't know what happened with that conversation. All I know is that I was then asked to go in and see somebody. So I went back to the emergency unit. They did the same thing that they always did. They did a urine test, and I was at this point not offered an internal, and they said, let's just book you in for a scan. It could be something not related to pregnancy, so we need to find out what's going on. So I was booked in for a scan, and I went, and again it was good news. Baby was fine. They couldn't find a source of the bleeding again, and she told me how far along I was, but said, but I won't do a proper measurement, I'll let them do that 8-12 week scan. At this point the weekend passed and the spotting stopped, and I thought, thank God for this, finally some good news. The spotting stopped and I felt like maybe I could relax a little bit. And then on the Monday I woke up, and I can't explain it, but I didn't feel pregnant anymore. I woke up feeling the same every morning, and at this point I should mention that I didn't actually have many pregnancy symptoms. I had sore boobs and I was tired, but I had like no sickness, nausea maybe a couple of times, and that was only if I let myself get too hungry. And I just felt off. That's the only way I could describe it. Like, I just felt off. I didn't really feel like my body was mine. And this Monday I woke up feeling pretty good. And I thought, oh, you know, at this point I'm nearly 10 weeks, you know, maybe as we're getting towards the end of the trimester, you know, maybe you start to feel better, I don't know. So I actually took myself off to the gym this day because I actually felt like I felt okay. Didn't do anything intense, literally really simple. Just trying to get my body moving again because I felt like I'd been a bit of a slug for a while. And I got back home and I had acupuncture booked for that afternoon. So I was just about to jump in the shower, and then I noticed that there was a lot of blood in my knickers and my heart dropped. And this was like full-on period blood. This was like, you are having a period. I panicked. I rang the emergency unit. I told them that my spotting had progressed from spotting to actual bleeding. They brought me in really quickly this time, and I went through the same thing. I did a urine test, I had an internal examination, and she said that she could see a lot of bleeding, a lot of clots, but my cervix was closed, which I later found out means that if your cervix is closed, you're not actively miscarrying. And she said she couldn't see any pregnancy tissue coming away. So at this point it went down on my record, which I found later, as a threatened miscarriage, and I was sent home and just basically told if the bleeding gets worse then to get back in touch. So that was the Monday. The Tuesday I woke up, my bleeding had got worse and it got heavier, and I went back into the unit and I had another internal examination. And I remember her saying to me, you've got ectropions, I can see them, if I poke them they bleed, I'm not concerned, I'm not worried, I don't think you're having a miscarriage, it's your ectropions bleeding. And I sat there and I said to her, this is not my ectropions bleeding, this is heavier, there are clots. Yes, my cervix is closed, but I don't feel pregnant anymore. Like, my symptoms have gone, the bleeding has progressed. You're not sending me home without checking that the baby's okay. And I basically refused to leave. Now, other women probably would have gone home thinking, oh, thank God. Like, they said I'm fine, they've said I'm not concerned. Women bleed in pregnancy, it happens. I'll wait for my 12-week scan. Everything's gonna be fine. But I just refused because I knew deep down that something wasn't right. So she went away, she came back and she said, as you're really anxious, we're gonna book you in for a scan. So I did. I went back 2 days later and I went in for that scan, and I knew straight away. I went in expecting them to say I was having a miscarriage. Like, I knew it, I could feel it, like, I know my body. But nothing will ever prepare you for actually getting that news. And when you go for a scan and the baby's fine, they literally tell you within like a minute. They find the baby, they find the heartbeat, and they'll show you the screen and they'll say, look, baby's fine. And then they'll continue to do their checks. She was taking ages looking around, and I knew that it was going to be a miscarriage. And she said to me, I'm really sorry, Natalie. There's a fetus, but there's no heartbeat. And because I'd been bleeding so heavy, I went in thinking that I'd already miscarried the baby. And I think this was the shock to me then. She turned the screen round. There was baby, but with no heartbeat. And the baby had stopped growing at 8 weeks and 6 days. And I should have been 10 weeks. And they had to get another nurse in to confirm it, and they said yes, there's no heartbeat. And I was asked to go into a quiet room, and the whole time I'd been at the hospital, the amount of times I've been checked, I'd seen people go in this quiet room and I didn't know what it was, and I was about to find out it's the place where you get sent if you've got pregnancy complications. So I was put in this room and I had to wait for a senior nurse to come and speak to me, and it's a very quick process. They obviously were sorry and apologetic, but I was basically told, here are your options in terms of miscarriage, medication, surgery. I was told that I could go home and think about it, but I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to take the medication that I wanted to do at home and be in my own environment. So that's what I chose. And I had to wait for my prescription to come through for the medication, and then I was able to leave. I set off home, and then I got a call to say you need to come back because you've not signed the consent form. And at this point I was angry. Like, I'd been sat there for 2 hours. They let me go, and now they wanted me to come back and see a doctor and sign a consent form. And again, they were really apologetic. They said that they'd had a really busy day, it was an oversight, like whatever. I went back, I signed the consent form, I came home. I was told to take the medication the next day because it's heavy bleeding and you don't want to be bleeding like that through the night. And I was given like a A4 diagram instruction sheet on how to insert the medication, which I won't go into in this video. And that was it. I was sent home. And only now, having been through the miscarriage, which is so hard, I can't put into words how it's the worst thing that I've ever been through. And I don't want to go into detail because I don't want to scare anybody, but it's not nice. It is not nice at all. And that's something that will stay with you forever. Like, you will never forget that. Whether you go on to have 12 babies after a miscarriage, you will never forget that first miscarriage. And I left feeling unsure. I didn't know what to expect. They don't explain to you what to expect in a miscarriage. I feel like if I'd been more informed what to look out for, what to expect. It might have made it easier. And a couple of days after the miscarriage, I was like, now what? Like, I was given no support. There's no follow-up call to ask how I'm doing. There's no scan to confirm that you've passed the baby. All I got told was to take a pregnancy test in 3 weeks and it should say not pregnant, and if it doesn't, I need to go back because I might not have passed all the tissue. And I just thought, oh my god, I've got to wait 3 weeks to possibly find out that it's not worked, to have to go back and go through this again. And I wasn't even directed to any support groups or told to contact my GP or just nothing like that, like no aftercare whatsoever. I had to do research on whether I can wear tampons, like should I exercise, like do I need to take any supplements because I'm bleeding. Like there was just nothing, and I think I am going to get back in contact with them again to ask like what now, because I just feel like I should at least be entitled to being checked to see whether everything has passed, rather than me sat here like wondering, has it, hasn't it? Or, you know, it's just, not only is miscarriage hard and isolating if you don't tell anybody, but I've never felt so unsupported in such a difficult time, and it really has felt like I've been let down throughout this whole process. Everything was a fight, everything. Yeah, everything I had to really ask for and justify. And that's what's made it so difficult. I just want to say, like, if you're going through this and you feel like something isn't right, you need to push. You need to not leave that room until you get what you want, because they are not always right. I was sent home being told that they weren't concerned when my baby had died and my body was trying to miscarry, and they weren't listening to me. So if you're going through this, I'm so sorry, so sorry. Like, the fact that 1 in 4 pregnancies end like this is awful, and the fact that there's no explanation, you don't know why, and you have to have 3 miscarriages in the UK for them to do any kind of investigation. It's just, I can't imagine going through this 3 times. So I have actually got an appointment with my gynecologist on the 1st of April. So I'm going to go armed with a load of questions, seeing if there's anything more that I can do in my next pregnancy to prevent this, whether it's like paying for blood tests, etc., because I can't do nothing next time, and I refuse to go through this process of backwards and forwards to the emergency unit and not being listened to. So yeah, I am going to ask questions, and if you've been through this yourself and you've got any advice, then please leave it in the comments down below, because it'd be really useful. But yeah, that's where I am now. I need to wait for a negative pregnancy test, so I have bought some pregnancy tests. And then we get back on the trying to conceive train again, so waiting for signs of ovulation. I want to have 1 natural cycle before we do try again, just to make sure that everything is working and back in order. And then we'll just try again. I'm also going to contact my doctor to see if I can get these ectropions removed before I get pregnant again, so that I'm not sent away being told that that's what it is, because I can't go through that again. And yeah, I'm gonna share my trying to conceive journey on here. I shared a bit of it last time and then kind of shut myself away when I found out I was pregnant, and it made it really hard. I felt really alone, and I want to be able to ask for advice and support and to hear other people's experiences. So I am going to be sharing this journey on here. I'm hoping to upload a video every week showing you where I'm up to, whether we're ovulating again and trying and all that stuff. And fingers crossed this year we will be able to get pregnant and have a healthy baby, and this was just a really unfortunate, horrible experience. that won't be repeated. That's what we're hoping for. So yeah, I'm sorry this video is long, but as you can see, it's a long story, and yeah, that's where we are. We're really hoping that things will be different next time round. So I'm going to wrap up this video here. Don't forget to come follow me over on Instagram as well, because I will share some bits on there. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in my next video.